Hey guys. This is one of the first things that I'm hopefully going to be changing with the group is these possibly even weekly little video segments, live interacting online. Obviously, anybody who's in the website, HTTP, I'm not going to go to the HTML toronto.ca site under the live section. We're going to hopefully do something a little bit engaging and interactive where you guys can come in, voice your opinion, ask questions, answer questions, and we'll talk about the news of the week or something that's gone on recently and hear what you guys have to say. This first one, it's a bit of a doozy actually as well, is the news that came out this past week that Opera is going to be switching to Webkit. This is a fairly substantial deal, especially to have a major browser that is transferring its complete web rendering engine. Now, previously, I don't know how many of you are using Opera or currently developed for Opera or have it included in your development scheme. For instance, anybody who's using the CSS prefix is the -o- for Opera, similar to what Webkit has for the -WebKit, IE has for -MS or filter or all of the various things for that. And obviously Firefox has the -Moz. So Opera has had and has always been a big proponent of building upon standards and has really taken the W3C to heart, actually being one of the first browsers ever to comply with the W3C standards during its infancy. I don't know how many of you are currently or have, I guess, worked with browsers in the past or how long you guys have been working with it. But Opera's been around for quite some time. I think it was the mid-90s, 95, 96, if I'm not mistaken. Opera was starting to come out with version 1 and 2. The reason they are currently using and what they're going to be transferring out of is what's known as Presto, similar to what Microsoft has with Trident and IE. Google and Safari have been working with WebKit, obviously building that up, which will be the new Opera. And then Mozilla has Gecko. So Firefox is built off of Gecko. This migration, I guess, to WebKit for Opera means a couple of things. First, in my opinion, probably one of a smart move. We're having a lot of developers now building these web applications and these tool sets for modern browsers that are the common ones. So you have Firefox, Chrome, Safari to a point, Safari on, I guess, iOS devices, and then Internet Explorer. So when you have Opera being this proponent that is, although considered to be one of the major browsers for good reason, it's a very powerful browser, not a lot of developers still include that -o- in their CSS, or they don't take consideration into it when they're dealing with JavaScript and browser-based JavaScript capabilities. Now, if you're using something like Modernizer or some of the other browser detection agencies, they do definitely take into account Opera. But if you're doing anything by hand, which some of you might be, most of you probably aren't. I know I'm not. I generally try to stick to libraries just to make sure that I don't have to code to a specific browser or make sure that I'm recognizing one. That these custom ones aren't really using Opera, and if they are, great, awesome, perfect, good for them. But there's a lot of work there for only a few percentage of what the audience is, even though that audience is more than likely the power users, the hardcore users that are constantly using the site, that are always online, that are tech savvy, that have this capability. So it's good to see them making something move. It was either going to be this or a complete restructure and make sure that they do follow all of the compensations. As you'll see in a minute here, I've actually, what I like to do for a lot of the browser tests, because I do run a lot of browser tests, is use FutureMark's Peacekeeper. So actually, I'm just going to pull it up right now in FutureMark. There we go. So let me just pull this over here. So this is one of the ones that I use for all my browser testing. Now, obviously, people have things like the caniuse.com to get whether or not certain browsers have compatibility. Those ones are really good for the standards, but what really drives it down is how these browsers render things out. Do they have the capabilities? Yes. Great. Awesome. Are those capabilities worth taking a look at yet? As an example, WebGL. There are definitely some browsers that handle WebGL. Surprisingly, some of them more than others. But it's just that. It's how well they handle it. So I use this a lot here. It does give you this kind of king of the hill thing, which although the way you see the people on there, the Safari, the IE, the kids playing on the hill, that's not what I'm getting from my statistics. Before the video here, and the reason why I was kind of a couple minutes late running it, is because I wanted to make sure that I had latest numbers. So I actually ran on my MacBook Air, and then on IE on this PC that I'm running this on, the tests for various browsers. So I ran this on Opera, obviously, with that being said, Canary, which is actually Google's alpha build that you can run in tandem with Chrome, Firefox, latest version of Firefox, and the latest version of Safari. I tried to get Aurora as well, and I might run that and then post that along with this thing, or along with this video online. But Aurora, Firefox has a, similar to what Chrome is for Google, a beta version or an alpha version that is their next build type thing, a stable one so people can test it, developers can play. Nonetheless, getting into it, as you can see, Opera here has a fairly significant score of 1934. So what does that mean, really? Well, the higher the number, the more compatible and the more smooth things run. Arrays, working within JavaScript, whether or not it supports certain video codecs, various things. I can click on this, but unfortunately, for whatever reason it is, FutureMark's JavaScript doesn't end up working for this main page. So even though I can click on this, the details show me absolutely nothing. Don't know why. Got to contact them about that. It might show up in another browser here. I'll try them all out. But to give you a retrospect, so we have Opera coming in at 1934, which is actually very, very good. I don't generally see browsers going above 2800, but that's extremely well. Modern, even as you can see here, iOS and Apple products. Let me just zoom in. Oh, it doesn't have that. Apple iPad 4th gen is like under 1,000. If we switch over to something like Google Chrome does have that significantly high. This is why it's the top of the heap. 2729. It's fairly substantial. There's a lot of things that it does, and a lot of things it does really, really fast, including the JavaScript in this. It handles it very nicely. Compare that, which ironically, to Canary, which is Google's, like I said, the beta version of the alpha beta version that's going to be released soon. This is 1677. Now, something to keep in mind when we're going back and forth on this, the Chrome build, the live Chrome build is the one that's released to the public. That's using Chrome and WebKit version 24.01, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go off and run the whole number off. Canary is using 27. So that's actually a full 3 versions forward, right? Full 3 versions up. There's a 25, a 26, and a 27 that'll basically be in that until we get to that. But because they're releasing so frequently and they're making these updates, we don't really tell after that. But just for anybody who is keeping track, it is Chrome browser right now. When I'm doing the tests, it's 24. Canary is 27. So going on to the next one here, Firefox, kind of a low number on this one here. Firefox is the 1463. Again, if you want to find out what these numbers truly mean and how they're evaluated, I will be releasing a couple of documents and how I'm speccing things out. But they do have on futuremark.com a lot of the specifications. Now, I don't think I've shown you Safari yet. Safari was actually the top of my list for compatibility and speed. I don't know if it was because it's running on an Air and the tests that FutureMark does are run on PCs on older versions of Safari, but this seems to work just fine. Now, I don't use Safari as my browser because of other compatibility issues, but it's significant numbers. Now, all of these, however, have all been above or around 2,000, between 2,000 and 3,000, with the one exception of the 1,700. On this PC that I'm running, IE10 is actually sitting at 890, which is running Trident 6. So IE10, latest version, completely up to date, 890. So although there is a lot of fast JavaScript, the compatibility is a big issue. Again, hopefully they're going to be updating this very soon. Hopefully we're going to be seeing a lot of compatibility migrated into it. But it's a fairly low number compared to the other browsers. So getting back to Opera, though. Opera migrating over to WebKit, right? So like I said in the past, Opera was one of the first people, or the first person, or the first organization to have a fully compatible browser to W3C's specifications, right? The standards that W3C sets, which are what turns into HTML 1, 2, 3, 4, and now 5. And as Matthew Fab's presentation was briefly touching on back in January, 5.1, 5.2, etc., going on in the future. And what these are is essentially just, here's the different tags, here's the different attributes, here's how to properly structure it, and here's the browser should handle that. Now, browsers can work with different ways and do things in a different manner. That's up to them. That's why they have their different browser engines. But these are the specifications and what should be expected to act. It should expect to act like. So a few things that the Opera hasn't done recently and why it's still not as high as some of the Chrome browsers or the Webkit browser, the Chromium, I should say. Things like sandboxing iframes or having that ability to just security in iframes. It does do security, but there's a couple interesting little points on that one. New CSS abilities, like calculating values within the CSS using the CALC open parentheses, close parentheses values in that. CSS 3D transitions, having that, or transformations, having it so that you can control something in 3D space. Taking a look at doing online gaming or these HTML-based web games, not replacing Flash, but definitely taking a lot of the aspects of it and moving it to a web-based platform. Opera doesn't have the capability just yet to do the 3D transformations yet. So moving into a WebKit browser, this would be far easier to implement, right? Instead of having to rebuild it from this other engine. Other things, HTML or H.264, it's not built in right now, whereas and probably it's not built in directly to WebKit, but migrating it from Presto to WebKit, this would be one of those things that would be added on top of it. You can still run H.264 if your computer has the capabilities of running it, similar to what IE has for MOVs and for all the different codecs. IE has the capability of running any video or almost any video, so long as your computer has the codec installed into it. It uses the operating system rather than the browser's abilities. Filtering effects and touch events. So first touch on that. Filtering effects isn't really used or isn't populated a lot yet, or isn't being used a lot. It's generally something that's coming out. It's a demonstration by a lot of WebKit browsers. It's Safari uses it and Chrome uses it right now. It's a big proponent of what Adobe is trying to do. So that's the filter effects. So it's not really used, but we'll probably end up seeing that come in once WebKit is built into Opera. Touch events. Now, obviously with tablets, smartphones, and a lot of the one-piece PCs on the market, having those touch events are going to be a big part of developing for web. Knowing whether or not somebody's doing a touch or it's a click or something will be a big aspect of how people develop sites. So that'll be a big thing that hopefully will be added to Opera. Masking, again, CSS masking has been not probably used a lot, but something that should be coming down the lines for a lot of these browsers. I believe WebKit does support this already. to a certain extent, but again, not being used because of browser compatibility. This is something that building in Webkit will most likely we'll see coming down the line in version 1. Orientation, device orientation, like I was saying with the touch, right? You have touch events. You also have, if my device has been rotated, which direction, etc. These will also be hopefully added to Opera in the future as well. They currently are not supported. You only see the dimensions of the browser change, not orientation change. So that's a big deal. And then last but not least, obviously, the things I want to mention here is WebKit audio. Now, this is probably the bane of anybody's existence if you're doing any type of HTML5 gaming at the moment. But HTML-based web API is not quite at its prime just yet, but it is something that Opera just doesn't support yet, not even in the latest version. So this is another thing that taking a look at when you're integrating a browser rendering engine into something else, or you're changing one engine to another. You wouldn't want to go half-assed and just say, I'm going to put this. And sorry for not making an actual engine reference, but I just don't know the technicalities of an engine. But you could say it's like putting in a whole engine without having the filter, right? You could probably run the engine, it would work for a while, but then you'd still need to update and manage that as well. If you're going to be re-engineering the whole engine, take all this different stuff that all of the W3C is saying, this is the standard, this is the new standard, here's what other browsers are doing with this compatibility, you're contributing and interacting and engaging with the Chromium team and the Webkit team already, why wouldn't you put that into this? So all this really means is what we're going to see is a more powerful, more structured Opera. But, and this is my question to you guys, because this is the engaging part, and this is what I want to get involved with you guys with, is are you planning on seeing what Opera does with this? Do you have an interest in this? Do you feel that we need another WebKit-based browser? Right? Especially when and although, again, they are a very substantial browser to be in the industry, are they something that you see come in as a proponent? Should they continue to develop a browser? Should we continue using things like Opera's plugins, which they have a slew of, but should we be continuing with having a third or fourth or fifth browser now, if you include the mobile-based browsers, that have WebKit? Is there a value in having this many of the same type? And if you're going to have this many, do we need to have it so that it's so sparsed out, right? You can develop for one in, say, Safari, and then the exact same website for WebKit using the same CSS code for the same rendering supposed engine renders completely different in another one. If we have another browser like Opera come in with a WebKit-based engine, are we taking a look at saying, okay, this is now going to be a third way, even though we're programming for the same rendering engine, that WebKit engine, is it going to be different? So that's my question to you. Please post a comment. Tell me if I'm completely off base here. Tell me if I'm lying up my wazoo or whatnot. I want to hear what you guys have to say. I want to know what your thoughts are on this. And if you're using Opera right now, how do you see this change? Do you find it, especially if you're a developer for it, do you find this as a betrayal? Do you find this as a good thing? Like, what are your thoughts on this? Anyway, until next time, and please, again, comment on this, either on the site or on YouTube, which this will be posted on. Please let me know your thoughts. And if you have any other things that you want to bring up for next week, please email me, Matthew@htmltoronto.ca.